Okay, great stuff so far. Hopefully you'll have questions that you can pop into the question section, and if we can answer them now, we will via the text, or we'll respond either in the session at the end or after the event. But please do keep them coming in. Next, we're coming back to the UK, where I'm actually based. We've got Helen Frewin, and Helen helps businesses with engagement, communications, and development in her role as a business psychologist. If you've been to one of Richard's events before, which is Connect events, she may be a very familiar face to you. Here to talk about her research into how learning is changing is the fantastic Helen Frewin.
Thank you, Simon. My mission for today is to shape a story where every single one of you consider that learning is your profession. But first, let me share with you a bit of the story of how learning became my profession, which I didn't know at the time, but it really all started in my early teens as I was growing up in a very loving but not very happy household. My dad hated his job, so wasn't very happy. And my mum loved her job, loved her career, but was working with a number of not so kind or helpful managers, which also had an impact on her life satisfaction, happiness, and so on. So these were just early shaping thoughts for me that surely the world of work could be better, that we could have nicer people to work for. And so perhaps no surprise then that I ended up studying business psychology to learn about all of that, to learn how work can be more enjoyable. And we then get a positive cycle of work satisfaction, work performance, and life satisfaction. I was learning so much about how leadership and management theory had changed over the years. I was learning about how someone could be the kind of manager I wish my mum could have had. And I learned about learning. I learned about this model from the 1950s, nothing new here, about how we evaluate learning to know if it's been effective. And that starts with just asking people's reactions. How did you find the learning? It's the reason why this talk is titled Breakfast Was Good, that most of the time when you ask people, how did you find that training session, they will comment on the food more than anything else. But as you see here, the levels then go up all the way to talking about the results of the learning. How has it improved profit or customer service or something we can tangibly say has had an impact? Now, this also then is critical for designing learning, to say what result do we want and how do we work back from there to work out how to deliver the best learning. So I'm learning all this incredible stuff. And then further than that, from the 1980s, I'm learning about how we don't just learn in the classroom. In fact, if you think about where you've learned your best lessons in life, it will not have been in a classroom. We learn most things through life, through experience, on the job. We learn a bit of stuff through sharing with others, speaking with our manager, our friends, our family, and then such a small proportion we do actually learn through some form of formal study. So here I am, fresh-faced, young, and all excited about the world of work. And I go out into the workplace and I'm bitterly disappointed and full of questions about why there is such a huge divide between this research and best practice and what happens day to day. In one particularly painful experience for me, I was asked to deliver some training for the IT team. And I followed what I'd learnt. I asked all these great questions about what result is wanted from the IT team. How do we need to change the IT team's behaviour in order to deliver that result? And therefore, what should the learning cover? The conversation got particularly uncomfortable when I was told, Helen, your job is to deliver the training, just go do it. Which I did. And I imagine it wasn't that effective, although I can't tell you for certain because I also wasn't allowed to carry out the evaluation. So at this point, this might all sound a bit bleak and depressing, but 20 years on in my career, still seeing these kind of stories play out, what I now know more than ever is that this is an opportunity for change. This pandemic gives us a bit of a catalyst, if you like, for unlearning some bad habits that we've got into and for taking on a new approach to the way we think about learning and indeed many other things. And in fact, futurist and philosopher Alvin Toffler talked about the need for us to be in constant cycles of unlearning and relearning, which is quite exciting to think about how we do that in our current situation. Now, future of work strategist Heather McGowan took this idea even further by talking about how our lives have changed so massively from how we used to think, or perhaps how we currently think, to the way we need to think in future. So historically or currently, we think of education, learning as something done to us by the schooling system. Then we go to work, then we retire, and there might be a bit of change during that time, but nothing too big. Well, now we don't live in that world. We live in a world with artificial intelligence, technology, uncertainty, global pandemics. The volume of change is huge. And how often do we talk about the fact that the jobs businesses need tomorrow don't exist today? So we cannot rely on an educational system to prepare people for those jobs. They will always be behind. In which case then, as you see with the blue line here, learning becomes something that has to happen during all of life for us to be able to adapt, to unlearn and relearn along with all of that change. Which means learning cannot be the responsibility of a few educational professionals. It has to be the responsibility for ourselves, for our peers, for our workplace, for our employer, to help us to adapt and be ready for those skills, those needs of the future. Which starts to beg the question then of how do we learn? If all of us need to have learning in our profession or be learning professionals, how do we learn? You might think that's a stupid question. Of course we know how to learn. We've been learning our whole lives. Well, then why is it that the Corporate Executive Board, in their research on productive learning environments, which, by the way, contributes to higher or faster revenue growth and faster profit growth than other companies, why is it that their research brought out that one of the fundamental things to that is teaching people how to learn? Why do we need to learn how to learn? Well, let's think about what we learn in school. We learn that there is one right answer and that you have to retain or remember that right answer in order to pass your exams. And you must do that alone, otherwise you're a cheat. Of course, that's not how the world of work operates. In work, we don't want one right answer. We want creativity and innovation and constantly pushing for better. We don't want people to just remember the past. We want agility and the ability to come into a brand new situation and use our resources and network to solve problems. And we cannot operate in silos. We need collaboration to drive innovation and success. And in fact, in PwC's survey of CEOs talking about the skills they need for the future, it's problem solving, creativity, collaboration, leadership. It's these soft skills that are so needed in business. And also we need to teach people that learning is not specific to a classroom. We need to teach people that learning on the job is their greatest opportunity and guide them in how to do that. And in fact, being part of a recent research group operated by Affinity Health at Work, this research group looked at a number of learning professionals across industries to understand how learning has changed during the pandemic and then estimations for post-pandemic. And what was found in that research was certainly a sense of shifting towards more blended learning, where instead of relying on the classroom or even an online classroom, we help people to think about learning on the job. So again, it's this sense of these models, this research has been about forever, but how do we now take this as an opportunity to unlearn and use some new habits? Which I'd like to share with you some questions about how you can think about doing this for yourself and your businesses, which starts again with those 4 levels with the results question. What is the result you want? That could be your company vision, it could be your personal ambition, or anything in between. What do you want and why? That gives you your direction. And then what are the skills today, tomorrow that can help you get there? That gives you a start of an action plan. And then what do you need to unlearn? What beliefs might be holding you back? And there's 2 really powerful examples right now of unlearning going on. Firstly, with online and remote working, how many people said that could never happen? Well, that got unlearned pretty quick. And secondly, with anti-racism. The volume now of noise about the need for us to unlearn our biases and our habits that actually get in the way of inclusion, that noise is creating a huge movement to allow us to unlearn some of those issues in the past. So take these questions so that for you, in using your profession in learning, you can come into this cycle of unlearning and relearning, and do so for all of your life. So thank you, Simon. I'll hand back to you.